Did you push send live? Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Cerna, and today we are going to be doing a demonstration of Business Central. If you have questions at any point in time, go ahead and put them in the Q&A chat that is in the upper right-hand corner. You'll say see Q&A, and Gina is on the backside answering questions. She'll hop in and we can show you what you'd like to see. If you need anything throughout or if you have any technical difficulties, feel free to email either your partner success manager or client success manager, and we'll try and help you out through the process. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hop into our demonstration today. Now on my screen, I am already logged into my Business Central environment. It's very, very easy for you to access Business Central. You are able to get there on any browser that you prefer. I today am using Chrome, and you can do that by going to office.com or even just typing in businesscentral.dynamics.com. Now, what that will do for you is when you come into that environment, it will prompt you to log into a production space or into a sandbox space. And the difference between those is that you have an operating company that we call production, and you also have up to 3 sandboxes. Your sandboxes are very handy because they allow you to have a copy of production, to test things out, to try out third parties, to test customizations, to go through an upgrade or update process, all before affecting that production environment. Now, if I come up here to the right side where it says environment and demo land, you will see that I have demo land, which is one of my sandboxes. We have our production company, a CEBC integration, and a webinar 2024 wave one. Those are all of my production companies and sandboxes for me to be able to access. And within those, they each have companies here that I'm able to log into. So if I wanted to go into one, let's say I was going into Cronus, I could even open in a new tab. So you can see here I have my demo Super Techie Computer Group company, and in another tab, I will have my Cronus USA company. So you are able to operate in multiple companies or multiple environments, all within your one browser in different tabs. The great thing is that you can also pull out those tabs and have 2 different ones on 2 different windows. So imagine if you wanted to compare information in different environments, it's very easy for you to work with these browsers and windows. I'll even drag it back in there so I have it within my same browser again. Now with Business Central, as soon as you log in, you are brought to the last company that you were logged into. So I have been brought to the role center of my Super Techie Computer Group company, and I can see everything that is allowed for my specific permissions. You can manage individual users' permissions. That is what screens and windows and actions they are allowed to take. Your role center is going to be a view of information that they are allowed to access. So for example, in my environment, I'm a super user. It sounds just like the name is, you are pretty much have superpowers. You are an administrator of an environment and have access to every window in operation. But my role center here is actually managed by the gear that is up in my toolbar. We'll go through some of these other icons here shortly. But for now, let's go into our gear and analyze these settings. My settings is going to bring me to specific things for my environment as it lies at this moment in time. So my role that I'm set up at right now is the business manager. Now let's say I really am just someone who does something with warehousing or shipping and receiving or sales and relationship manager, and the business manager view isn't really conducive to what I'm working on every day. So I can switch this role. Every user has the power to select their own role unless we took away the options and you didn't want people to. Now, remember, the role center is not permissions driven. So if you had permissions for no permissions for purchasing, your role center isn't all of a sudden going to give you view into purchasing. It will still respect those permissions. But now you can see my role is giving me shortcuts for contacts or opportunities. I have actions to create sales quotes or print out my customer top 10 list. My activities here are around my contacts or sales opportunities, and I have KPIs driven throughout my role center that is specific to the sales and relationship manager portion. Now I'm going to go back to that business manager role because I'm super nosy and love all of the things that are on there. But you can also see, you can come here and choose which company you'd like to be in as well. If you didn't want to use our shortcut up at the top, you can come here and see which companies you have access to as well. The work date is the date that you're operating in your system. So let's say that last Friday you received a whole bunch of invoices, or maybe you want to make a payroll entry as of a specific date. And you don't want to have to update every line on every window that you're going into. And instead, you would just like to be operating as if it was the 16th. Come to your work date and you'll push OK. And it will be, I'm refreshing because I changed my rule center. Now on any of your transactions, you will be set up as the date that you filled into that work date. Whenever you're done with that work date, you can either come back to change that work date on your screen, see how it will go back to 8:15 for you, or you can refresh, close Business Central and reopen. So if you were done for the day and you came back in tomorrow, it would not still be on the same work date that you sent previously. It will go to your current day. Now, as I move through my role center on my Business Manager, there's a few different sections that we'll take a look at. The first is going to be our very tippity top toolbar here. So we saw the My Settings. There is Personalize and Design. We'll come back to those shortly. Your company information. This is where we're storing things like your address, your email that you'd like defaulted, if you have taxes. But this company badge is the one that is so helpful to figure out which environment you're in if you have multiples. If I change this to custom, and I'm going to say this is Super Techie Computer Group. So STCG, just a nice quick shortcut so I can see. And I want this one to be, how about purple? If I come back and I go out of my window, it's just going to let us know, it's going to refresh our page. And the reason why this company badge is helpful is because now I have the STCG here, but also if I go onto other pages, like if I hop into my vendor up here, you can see up in my tab here, it now says that I'm on the vendor page in STCG. So imagine if you were working in multiple companies or multiple environments, you get that nice shortcut up on your tab, so you always know where you're at any given point in time. Just a little helpful, handy tip. The other items that we have in our settings view here are things like your assisted setup or advanced settings, page scripting, which is a new feature where you can actually record things like macros of different processes being completed. We also have our help button here. Help is going to be where you can get to easy documentation, where you can find out information about your system, like the version that you're on, or if you have any issues, you can see here that it has the email address for True North for support. So it's going to be a quick access point for you to be able to get the help that you need. One of my favorite buttons, all of Business Central, is this looking glass. You can search your entire system just by this button. So for example, if I wanted to look up, let's say my customer list, I can come in here and I can type in customers, and I can see here that I have a list of all of those customers. Now, if I wanted to go a step further and say that I was looking for one of those customers, I can put in here True North, and I can search my company data, and it's going to come back with wherever that True North customer is being touched. So I have my contact, I have some general ledger entries, there's that customer, my customer ledger entries, which is going to be things to my sales subledger, any of those invoices. So all of the things I have to do True North are in this list, and I can dig into any one of those records with just a few clicks. Okay, you could even put in a specific invoice number into that search and you would be able to find it. This is going to be our Copilot button. Copilot is a newer feature that's inside of Business Central that is looking at AI features. And it was released, it's been phasing in for the last couple of releases, but our last release had a really big one. One of my favorite things that you can do in here is what customer had the highest sales in 2024. So we can have a quick chat or a conversation with Copilot here on the side of Business Central, and it's going to give us back information. Great thing is that it even has the view prompts button here, so it gives you ideas of how you are able to use this Copilot to help you in your everyday transactions. It's also sprinkled throughout Business Central. We'll see a few more, but you can see here the customer with the highest sales in 2024. We can go here into the customer ledger entries, and it will show us the data that's building up all of our sales information. We'll check on some more Copilot features as we go through, but let's move on to our Rule Center here. At the top, these buttons are going to be navigating us throughout Business Central, and these buttons are going to be based off of your role. So we saw in the Sales and Relationship Manager, it was focusing more on things like contacts, where here I have my vendor. But you're able to also adjust these as well. So these are going to be shortcuts that we have, and maybe I want a shortcut for my customers. I have here in my lookup customer, and I can either choose my bookmark right from this window, or if I open up my customer list, I can choose that bookmark here. And once I've bookmarked, that will add that value to my shortcuts list. So now you can see that's available here. So even though there are some default values, you always have the ability to personalize and customize and make your views and the user interface your own. Same with these actions. Now I mentioned that there is a button up here called Personalize. If I come into Personalize, this is going to allow me to make my screen my own. So I have here that there's sales quotes. Maybe my company doesn't do sales quotes and I just don't want the button there. I can click on it and I can say hide. Or perhaps I want my purchase order to be above the purchase invoice. I can move around and update different spaces based off of my preferences, and this won't affect other users. So if there's things that I don't do and don't want to see all the time, I get to change that. We'll see that on a few other screens as well. But as we move down, anything that's teal here means that there's additional information behind. So I have a section here called Outstanding Vendor Invoices with the number 7. Well, I wonder what those invoices are. I can click on that and it gives me my list of all of my outstanding vendor invoices. Now we can see that these are red and bolded. The red means that it's past due and the bold means that it's still not paid. So if I were to go into some of my ledger entries and I see red but unbold, that means it's already paid, but when we paid it or when we were paid, it was late. So you have all kinds of visual cues throughout the system to let you know how things are going. I can also personalize on any of my screens. So these beautiful kind of glorified Excel lists, our list pages is what we call them. There's a lot of information on here. It defaults to have a ton of info, but you don't have to keep it. You can come in here and say, well, we don't have multi-currency, so I don't need that. I don't really care about on hold. Maybe I want something like my original amount or my amount here to be over on this side. Maybe my freeze pane here, that's this red line, I'd like to actually be after my vendor name. I can come here and set my freeze pane, and now when I scroll over, only those last columns are moving. So it's a very dynamic screen and meant to make your user experience that much better. It's also pretty cool when you move around your columns and your fields here, we have an integration to Excel. Business Central, one of the best features in my opinion is that we are integrated with the entire Microsoft stack here. So our integration with Excel is great. I can come here on any of these list pages and do open in Excel, and I can then open this up and it's going to respect any of these columns here, and it's going to put it in the same order, the same filters and things. I have OneDrive enabled, so you can see it's going to come out here into my browser. You do not have to have OneDrive enabled, and you can also download those sheets. It's going to be all your preference, but my columns and my filters are going to match whatever is on my page. Now these filters can also be saved. So right now, you can see on the side here, I have the filter list by with a document type and of invoice and open set to yes. Now, if you don't see that, it's just this funnel that's showing and hiding these filters here. But you can see I have a number of views that are saved. So if I wanted invoices that are due posted by me, this is actually remaining amount is not equal to 0, and it's my specific user ID. So you can see that you can save these different filters. You can create as many as you want, or you can leave it unfiltered. This is just our vendor ledger entry page. So my subledger for my purchasing here is going to have all this information, and you get to utilize it for those of our viewers who are coming from a Dynamics GP platform, almost like your smart list. We'll hop back to our rule center here. And as we come through down here, you can see all kinds of activities. We are integrated with Shopify. There is a ton of approvals built in. So if you need approval processes for things like journal entries or invoices on the purchasing or sales side, all of those features are built in with Business Central. As I come down further, you're going to see a section called Insights and then also a section for Power BI, our trial balance here. We have something inside of Business Central that we call the Intelligent Cloud Insights. The Intelligent Cloud Insights is Business Central going out and trying to display back data to us in a way that can be more easily consumed. A lot of the ERP systems now, we have tons of data, but there's no way to actually capture that data or utilize it. What we're doing on Business Central is we start with four main pieces of information for our KPIs: our cash available, our sales profitability, our net income, and our inventory value. And these numbers are being generated by your specific chart of accounts. A lot of people ask us, so do we have to use the chart of accounts in Business Central to be able to get those? You don't. It's actually pretty cool because on your chart of accounts, there's going to be things called your categories and your subcategories. So if I hop into a GL account here, I have an account category of assets, our standard list of categories here, but then you have account subcategories. And these are going to be ones that we can create based off of your chart and how you want things to be separated. So an example here for our balance sheet accounts, we have cash, accounts receivable, prepaid expenses, inventory, and so on and so forth. And each GL account is assigned those values. I'll hop over here to our GL account categories, which is another view of the same information, all of those different categories and subcategories with which GL accounts are assigned. But you'll also see this additional reporting definition. We can come in here and say if it's a cash account, if it's investing, operating, financing, retained earnings, distribution. And that is what's helping build up those intelligent cloud insights to give us back some built-in reports and KPIs. So if we came down to this business performance, it's looking at this type of information. We can select different charts that are throughout the system. And we're also integrated with Power BI. So any of the data that's in Business Central, we have open web services, open API, where we can connect and build reports based off of this data. In October, we have our next major upgrade that's being released, and 34 new Power BI reports are being released. And they range everywhere from financial data to fixed assets to projects. All of the different modules in Business Central, including manufacturing, are now getting their own dashboards in here. Now, you can also integrate to any of the dashboards that you build yourselves based off of the data, or if you needed us, we could build them as well. But they're all available right here on your home screen. You would be able to expand those reports. So you have the full screen, you can interact with them and get different data, but they're also available throughout different records inside of Business Central. So for example, if I went over to a customer here, I could expand my information pane, and you can see if we were to select different Power BI reports, it's available right here. So if I wanted to come over to my reports and pick out a sales report to be defaulted on my customer list page, then anytime I selected a customer here, the related information, depending on what report you have, will be displayed on your Power BI section. And you still have that option to expand right from here. So you can get full-size dashboards all within your system. This is where it gets really cool because you can see that there's different dashboards that are all built in. So the expanded view really allows you to interact and utilize these reports however you need to have smooth operations and get the data that you need. Last thing that we'll touch on our Role Center, though there's plenty more I'm skipping over, is this report inbox on the bottom. Now, when I worked as an end user before coming over into the consulting space, I remember having to run reports on Friday evening, start running them on Friday evening, and have the system generate them. So by Monday morning when I got there, everything was done running. And if you didn't remember to run it on Friday night, gosh, Monday morning really sucked because you wouldn't have them in time. Any of these reports inside of Business Central, you are able to set up on a schedule. So if I wanted to run something like an aged accounts receivable or accounts payable report, I can come into those reports And on any of these, we have the option to send to and a schedule. And we can put what kind of output we want. So maybe I want an Excel list and my next run date formula, today's Thursday, maybe I want it every Friday. So I'm going to say on every Friday morning. So I'm going to say every 1 week or 1W or every 7D, 7 days. And there's all kinds of formula that we give you cheat sheets on, but it helps you have really dynamic reporting because you don't have just a once a month or a specific date. You can put in the last day of every month or every quarter. You have all kinds of different formulas that you can do. Then you put your start and end date. So I'd like it to run tonight at midnight so that it will be there for me in the morning. And maybe I want this to go just through the end of the year because I want to evaluate my settings at the end of the year. So I'll put whatever I'd like my last date, I'll make it the second and say okay. So then when I come in tomorrow and I log in the morning, it will be waiting for me at the very bottom on my role center. It will have here that report in an Excel format for me to click on. So very handy, let you schedule things and forget them, have them waiting for you. For me, one of the biggest purposes of Business Central and ERPs in general is to take some of the work off of your plate, automate. Now, with all kinds of tools that we have with Microsoft, we get to automate our processes and really get a different level of our work done in different ways. Now, we briefly saw the chart of accounts for Business Central. I'll hop back over to there. I'll just do a quick check-in. Gina, do we have any questions so far?
We are working on 0 questions so far.
Okay. All right. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send them over. Would love to show you guys what you need. For now, we'll hop into our chart of accounts. You can see the chart here is pretty streamlined. And usually we do between 5 and 6 digits on your chart of accounts to give you plenty of room to grow. You'll see here that we get to do increments by 100 on the in-betweens. But the really unique features that we have here are that we can have heading accounts, beginning total accounts, ending total accounts, and this allows us to group different accounts together, organize them, streamline them, make your reporting a little bit better. I love how I can see here the beginning of my assets here. This is not a posting account, so I cannot post to it, but it does group together all of my assets. So down here at the total of assets, this is rolling in all of the values of my assets ahead of time. So I not only get my net change, my balance, I can click into here and I can then see all of the entries that make up that net change or that balance with the accounts that are within that range. So you can see here it automatically filtered those to these accounts, and it is defined back on this total assets account, that same value. So we are able to easily, without even having to run a report, see what those values are going to be. You get to keep in mind all of those filters that we had in the past will be also available on things like this list. So if I wanted to, I could filter my totals, these totals here. Now keep an eye on my net change, my balance, and my balance at date. I could come here and I could filter those totals by, and I could filter them by my date. So if I wanted to do just 1 through, which is going to be dot dot 131. And if you don't put a year, it uses your current year. And I'm just going to push enter here. Now you can see that my balance, because this is today's balance, sorry, my balance at date is today's balance. This is current, and then my net change. I messed up my words there. Let me fix that. My balance today, my balance as of the date that I'm filtering, and then my net change for that, that date that I'm being filtered by. And when you click into those windows, it will still respect those same filters from before. Makes checking on those values very, very easy. And again, you can save these. So you can see here I have Q2 of 2023, Q1 through May. So any of your views, you are able to keep them here. Now, this chart here is very, very streamlined, and a lot of people are worried because you don't see that we have segments. If you're used to having segments or hyphens, dashes between different values of your chart of accounts, it may look a little strange. How are we capturing all of that data that we're trying to store in our segments? For Business Central, the answer is dimensions. I always tell people when they're thinking about dimensions, think about the things that you currently report on and you love, or that you wish you could report on and need to. And those are usually going to be different dimension values. Dimensions are, in essence, metadata that you want to be able to filter anything in your system by. So for this environment, I am tracking things like a geographical area. And if I come into this geographical area list, we have the East Coast, Midwest, North, South, Upper Midwest, West Coast, just different values that I might want to assign either to vendors or to customers to know or be able to run any of my reports on the geographical area that they are located in. I also have things like my departments. So if I wanted to track expenses by departments, I would be able to come in here and create different departments that need to be assigned to different transactions. I have in this example also divisions. Now this is going to show you a different version of how we can set up these dimensions. The other ones you saw that we had some alpha characters as our code and also just single level. Now here, what we're doing is we actually have where we have a hierarchy. We have a beginning total called ERP, and within there we have Dynamics GP and Dynamics Business Central. And then we have our totaling that's bringing those values together, but also individual groups here. So you can also do hierarchies and organize your dimensions in a more kind of streamlined fashion rather than just alpha values that you aren't necessarily able to do these types of totalings on. And lastly, we have here a sector example, food and services, mining, all the different kinds of things that we maybe want to apply to our vendors or our customers. Now, these dimensions can be used in a few different ways. We can either create a journal entry and we just assign them on the line, or we can do what we call default dimensions. And those default dimensions, once they're assigned to a master record, will automatically put themselves onto a transaction. So, for example, let's hop in and do a customer here. So I have my 4 customers. I'm going to create a new one. And I have different templates. Now, all of these templates can be defined by you, but the base setups also give you 4 to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that this is a business-to-business customer, and I'm going to use this template. Our templates are essentially putting in some default values for us so that we have less things to populate. So an example is it put in my posting groups, which is how I would post to the subledger and GL. And it put in things like my payment terms, my payment method. So I just have less things to set up to get ready to go. Now in my system, I have turned on where it's automatically numbering for me and I've set the numbering schema. So I'm just going to put in the name. And since I'm going to pick on Gina here, we'll put in Gina. Now this screen also can be personalized. So I can come in here. Let's say that I don't actually do document sending profiles. I can come in here and I can hide them. Or if there's a better place for me to put it, I can always drag and drop it over there. So maybe I would like the balance over here and my document profile here. So this is all based off of everyone's individual preferences. We also have show more and show less sections. So this is going to define what you see and when. Maybe I would always like the contact code and contact name to be showing. I can come here and I can change that to show always. So now when I do this one here, my code shows as well. Okay. You also have the ability to bring on additional fields. So if there's one that I'm looking for that wasn't there, I clicked my plus field button and I can take, okay, maybe I needed name 2 because they have a really long name. I can drag and drop that in, and now that field is available on my screen. So I am going to put in Gina's address here, Apple Street, and we'll say that's in Pineapple Town in Hawaii. We'll just go with Hawaii because that sounds like a lot of fun right now. And then we have our contact name is actually going to be her dog Enzo because he knows what his mom wants. And then we'll just put in her email here. So now I have my customer. I need a tax area code. In this case, we aren't capturing tax. It's not required for my company. So even though I have my star, it's okay. It's not going to stop me from moving on. But I do want to put in information about Gina so that on transactions, it automatically posts. So I can come here to customer and dimensions, and I'm going to get those dimension values assigned. Now, I know that Gina is a specific sector. So we're going to say that Gina is finance and insurance. And she's not going to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden be, I don't know, a doggy trainer. Though if Gina had her way, I bet she would. But we know that Gina's business is not going to become that doggy trainer overnight. So we're going to say same code is the value because we are always going to have her as this finance and insurance business. It's not going to change every day. So I just wanted to put that code in there as available. Now I also have that geographical area. And let's say that Gina has a few different addresses. So I don't necessarily want to put on there that she's always the upper Midwest because maybe sometimes she's going to tell me which area of business this is. So I want to put code mandatory on here. It means that I have to fill that value in, but I don't necessarily know what it is on my customer card. But I should know on whatever transaction I'm processing with her. Now, sometimes we'll have people want to use something like no code. I think we've mostly seen that on like if you do defaults on balancing accounts and you put no code because you don't want a value on that. But these are going to be our most often used kind of value posting. You can even come here to the allowed values. And let's say that Gina only ever does work in the upper Midwest and the Midwest. I can put those as the only two values that are allowed. Oh, I just didn't select them. Let me uncheck these guys here. So she's just allowed to have those two, okay? And we'll push OK. And I'm going to go back. You can see it assigned those here. And now I can create that transaction with Gina. If we're already on our customer card, we can come here to new document and you can choose which document you'd like to begin. But you also have right here from your customer list page, you have it from your home page if you were using these values here. So you're going to find which process works best for you. Business Central is very flexible with multiple ways of carrying out processes, and it's all about what works best for each individual. Now, if I'm doing it right from my home page, it doesn't fill in my customer, but if I did it from my customer page, it would automatically fill it in. One of my favorite things about Business Central is that it will do a lookup for you. If you don't know your customer number, you don't have to go look it up, but I do know maybe my customer's name, or if I know what their phone number is, I can start typing that in. So it will search by a number of values that are available on that customer to be able to choose the related value for that master record. Now it's going to populate in my default information. You can of course change it, but it's going to put in all of your defaults. And then you would come into those item numbers. So you can do those types of default values on not only your customers, you can do them on your vendors, you can do them on things like your item numbers, and be able to have different values populate. I do always like to tell people you'll see that I'm using my mouse a lot. That's so you can follow me around. There is a ton of built-in shortcuts and features throughout. There's even a handy, if we go back to that help button, shortcut. And a little printout sheet is on here that I just love. It gives you all of your different shortcuts, but you can mostly navigate throughout all of Business Central with just using your keyboard if you really wanted to. But I just make sure to use my mouse because I want to make sure you guys can see where I'm going. But if we scroll over here, you're going to see that that sector code filled in for us. And if I was to try to post right now, I'm going to get an error because the dimension value of area is not assigned for the customer. And you can see I also have a default dimension requirement on the item to fill in that department. So the system's going to stop you and make sure that different things need to be filled in to move on. That's going to then allow us to run different reports and utilize those dimensions to filter different values out. In the financial reporting section in Business Central, I love to show how those dimensions can be used because I just think it's so handy to be able to take different values and filter and sort on them. So I'm looking at the definition here of a report, my P&L by department. I'm just going to change my definition code for my column here to department. And you will see on the bottom here that I have just my rows, but on my column definition, I am actually separating out my columns by the different dimension values for my departments here. I even have one for division, and it's taking your data that you have from your GL accounts and really letting you filter out and get information in a way that helps you make decisions in a different way. I'm going to open up this column definition here so you can see what that looks like. But we have here just the column headers of what we'd like to call it. And here's where we're filtering out what we would like to be visible in those columns. And it's very flexible. So if you wanted to show, let's say, your ERP just in one column, here we have that it's 199. That's why it's so nice to set up those hierarchies, because then you don't have to do ranges of things. But let's say just in case you did, if we wanted to add in a line here and just say, everything else, don't tell the Power Apps team I said that, since we're on a Business Central call. They're the everything else. We could do 200 ... 400. That would be 200 through 400. Or if you use your pipe, oops, let's go here. If you use your pipe, oh, I keep pushing the tab button instead of shift, and select different values. You could do 200 pipe 300. It's going to be 200 and 300. Or if you wanted to, you could just go in and you can select your lines. I'm holding down shift and you can say okay, and it's going to do that range again. So very easy to come in and fill those in. Now, if I want my formula for everything, I could just do 1.7. That's my column numbers to get all of that information through. You can also come in here and do budget entries. If you set up GL budgets inside of Business Central, you can do actuals versus budgets and track your variances. You can do debits, credits, your net amount. You have all kinds of different options, balance at date, year to date, and all kinds of choices here. And if you're a GP customer, it's going to be pretty similar to Management Reporter on how you are formatting. So there's going to be different options. Right, I'm going to take that off because my formula is over here. You'll see I'm not bringing in number 7, which is quite all right because that would be a double up of my 4 through 6. So if I come back here and select that, you can see it updates. Now I have my everything else column. So pretty fun. You can also do the same thing on your rows. If you prefer to do your rows, then you can do that absolutely. Let's hop into my row definition on here. And I can see here that I am actually just doing this whole group of 40,000 through 99,999. So grabbing all of my accounts, and I'm separating by my department codes here. So you can utilize these dimensions throughout any of your reports. We did some on other examples for sales reports, if you wanted to see the sales of different departments or different salespeople. So you really think about those dimensions and how they'll be able to give you the reports that you want and build everything else around that. Okay, we're going to transition over to just some of the features inside of Business Central that make it really special, because on the high level, ERPs do a lot of the same things, right? We process sales transactions, we process purchasing, and really it comes down to usability and how it can change your day. For me, one of the biggest ways that it changes our day is how it's integrated with the entire Microsoft stack. So what I mean by that is we saw how we can open in Excel. There's also one of my favorite things, and gosh, anyone at the company or who's been on a demo with me has probably heard this story 300 million times. But I used to work for a furniture manufacturer who sold furniture to hundreds of different online retailers. And we had about 5 salespeople that made up that retail kind of block. And we had a time where a salesperson left and we had to reassign hundreds of different values to of those customers to salespeople. And we had Dynamics GP at the time. And so we either had to go into each customer one by one and change them by hand, or we had to ask our representative to go in and change it in the backside. They had to go into SQL and actually change it. And so either way, we were either paying someone internally to spend hours doing everything manually or paying someone externally to go in and do it quickly, but we paid them a premium rate. So I love showing the example of how something so simple can take so much time. But now in Business Central, because we have that ability to edit in Excel, which is going to be a live publication between Business Central and Excel, I can take something like changing salespeople on hundreds of records and do it more quickly. So I'll show you quick with a quick example here. Now what you can see is that Excel is opening, and on the side here it's retrieving metadata. So what it's doing is it's going, okay, Michelle opened this. Does she have access to this table as read or read write? Is she allowed to be doing this? And so it follows all the rules. Now there's a ton of data on here because it dumps all of these different fields in here. Cool thing is there is a design mode. So you can come in and actually remove these columns. You can add them in the order you want. And you can save this and use it over and over and over. For today's demonstration, I'm just going to show you how easily it is to take this one record and I can drag it. So all 4 of these are now MS, or I can change it to another value. You saw that I created GH, and I can drag that down. I can assign it to whomever I want. You can use your filters and your sorts here. But also, so I'm just going to quick push publish here, and you'll see that it updated my information. And if I were to go back into my customer and opened any one of these, it will already say GH here because it updates that quickly. But what it also does is I now pick on Amber, who's one of our CSMs, and I put her on here and I push publish. Now you saw, if you were watching, I was creating my salespeople. I created Gina and I created myself, but I didn't create Amber and she wasn't pre-existing. So it actually gives me a message here. Hey, by the way, that code doesn't exist. So I'm not going to do that. So it follows all of the same rules of what would be expected inside of Business Central, even though we're inside of Excel. Imagine these kinds of updates with things like journal entries. If you were comfortable doing them in Excel and wanted to just publish them and send them back to your GL, you can do that. It'll go to a journal for you to review and then post. You can do that with sales invoice lines. You can do that with purchase transactions. You can update records, delete records, and add new ones. Very, very powerful integration that just changes your day in such a simple but profound way. We are also integrated with things like Outlook and also with Teams. So in Outlook, I will show you here. You'll see up at the top, I have a button for Contact Insights. That is integrating me to Business Central, where I can actually, right from here, create a brand new sales invoice, purchase order, all kinds of transactions, connect my contacts. But also on Teams, you'll see here that I actually added a Business Central window to one of my team channels. It's pretty easy. Click of a button, you come into your Add tab, you choose Business Central. I'm going to turn off Post to the channel because I don't know if everyone cares that I'm so excited about it. But you can see I have a drop down of different windows. So if I did my customers, and you can choose from your different environments, your different companies, you can come in here and see all of those different views. And I just saved this guy and it adds a new tab. So now I have one for vendors, I have one for customers. It can point to different companies if you have several. But what this does is it allows you to have people who have a Microsoft 365 license, I believe it's E3 or higher, to give them access. It'll be read only if they don't have any other Business Central licenses in Teams. You don't have to have a full Business Central license. You don't even have to have a team member license. You just need an E3 or higher Microsoft 365 to be able to do read inside of Business Central here. So the big difference is that for me, I have a full license, so I still can do a new document. So I can come here and create the sales invoice. Anyone who doesn't have the full license won't be able to do that. But how cool is that I'm in Teams right now? I don't have to leave and go to my browser. I'm on the phone with Computers R Us. I can come right to my tab and I can go, okay, let's see what my contact name is. Okay, Computers R Us. You want let's say they wanted a surface. I can type in surface, choose that number. They want, I only have one location, so I could default Maine if I had it. They want 100 of these. Now I tab over, and gosh, my availability is too low for that. I should probably do something about that. I can either do show my details, or if I minimize those, I can come up and I can come in here and I can create a purchase order right from here if I had the correct permissions. We'll just do an invoice here. And I can do it for all my lines or selected. I just have one line here, so I don't really have to change it. I'm going to choose who I purchased that from, my vendor list. I'm going to create that purchase order or purchase invoice, and I am going to come here. I'm going to post this invoice, and it lets me know I need that department for that item. So let's fill that in. It's going to be for my sales team. I have my vendor invoice. This was from UCD and it's 815 because they didn't give me a specific number. So I'll make my own. Let's post this guy. So now I'm going to post my invoice. You have to have all of your proper permissions, of course. But now when that's posted, I can come back on my customer and I would have those quantities in to where I'd be able to post and either ship this out to them, or if you don't have a fulfillment process, then you would be able to just invoice them. All from Teams. So pretty cool how I'm able to access Business Central in that way on a completely different platform. And then we also have integrations to other things. You saw Copilot, which is a brief example. We also have Copilot throughout the system. One of my favorite newer ones that it does Copilot on is your bank account reconciliations, where you can actually have Copilot import and reconcile your bank statement. Very, very cool. In the essence of time, I'll skip over that one. But if you ever want to see that one, let us know. We've got a few videos on it. But lastly, one of the best integrations that we have that just keeps getting more robust is to a tool called Power Automate. If you haven't heard of Power Automate, a very simple definition, and I'm not doing it justice, is that it automates processes for you based off of actions. So one that I use all the time is that if I get an email with an attachment, it will store it in a SharePoint folder for me. So I tell it when I receive an email and if there's an attachment, put it in this SharePoint folder. You can do the same within Business Central. It's used in a few different ways. If you have approvals that you'd like, you can use the out-of-the-box ones that are in Business Central, or you can attach to Power Automate, and it will send you a message on Teams and say, hey, you need to review and approve this. Other ways that you can do it is come to a record. I like using the customer card because I think we can all almost understand this. There's an automate button here. And one that's built in is block the selected customer for Business Central. Now, there's a few processes that I've set up in the background here, but essentially what it's doing is it is setting my customer to blocked, and then it is emailing out the salesperson and letting them know, hey, we're blocking them. Here's my block status. I'm giving my reason. They haven't paid bills and don't return calls for the last 12 months. So then what it's going to do, right now I'm operating as a finance person. In my flow, what it's doing is it's going to block my customer here in Business Central and email out my salesperson saying, hey, FYI, we're not doing business with them anymore. So that is just running off of something that I've set up. You can see there's a number of ways that we can set them up, and they're relatively simple, and they can go from very basic to very complex. Some of the cooler ones we've seen are that when we put a file into a SharePoint folder, every 5 minutes, Power Automate is going to that folder and saying, is there something here? Is there something here? And when there is, it's reading that file and importing it into Business Central. Pretty cool tool that you can utilize throughout the system. For today, that is all that we will be going through on Business Central. Gina, did we have any questions that anyone left behind?
No questions for you because you were so thorough.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to see anything additional in Business Central, I love showing people around. It is one of the best tools that I've used in my career as a consultant. And we also utilize it internally. That's how much we love it. It's our ERP system that we use every day. Have a whole team who's excited to tell you about it. So if you have any questions, have any interest on seeing additional topics or coming over to Business Central, please let us know. We're here to answer questions and help you throughout your journey. With that, I hope everyone has a spectacular day. You can reach out to us at clientsuccess@truenorthdynamics.com or partnersuccess@truenorthdynamics.com, and we'll answer any of your questions. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.